Good, thank you.
Okay, we're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. And we would like to recognize that this meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Lillooet Nation. Can I have an approval of the agenda, please? Moved and seconded. All question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. No closed meeting. No rise in report. Consent agenda. Moved, seconded. Everything's okay with that? Okay. Okay. Moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Go down to 6 business arising from the minutes, none. Staff reports and other business. We have it. Yes, here. 7.1 CAO verbal update. Nothing at the Thank you very much. 7.2 June 2023 Select Funds Report. You have Suzanne coming in for that, or
She's not able to.
oh, she's on holiday, isn't she?
No, she's in
Oh.
conference. Yeah.
Okay.
Just had one comment, but without Suzanne here, maybe I'll just ask the question of the CAO or staff that, under the Area B Select Funds Reserve Balances account number 30112, I'm on page 14 of my package. There are $69,549.93 set aside. This was something Director Macrae started before me, and I just thought it was very good for Area B to have some extra reserve money available for anything we can do to keep wildfires at bay or limited in Area B. But I'm hoping that this fund, the way it's worded, equipment and fuel reserve, can include mapping, meetings, honoraria for people coming to meetings, like whatever costs these guys might incur in the course of trying to do their job. And they're really doing a lot of work with community groups. And so I'm thrilled about that. And I've just got a thank you from the Alicum, and I recently had one from Pavilion. So this is really great, good stuff on the ground. And so I guess I should just ask that question with Suzanne when she's available. Okay, I will do that. And I can certainly put it in writing if that's helpful. I just didn't think it would be a message though. Okay. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay.
I'll send a note to Suzanne just to confirm that. My understanding is correct.
Did you want to add something, Craig? Nope, I was just going to. Anybody else for the select funds?
I had a question about Area D that I thought was sorted out last time. That there's $5,000 for those garden waste bins for Ferry Creek and Britannia Beach, and I don't know if that I understood that wasn't needed anymore. But do you know how to do that?
Yes, through the chair, in speaking to the resource recovery coordinator, Marie-Lou LeBlanc, she was looking at the costs associated with this year and was going to get back to you on whether or not those funds were needed.
Because that was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe there was some carryover.
Okay.
But staff can follow up.
Okay, so she's on that.
Yeah.
Good.
You're okay, Sal? Yep. Okay. So we would just move receipt of this report.
I'll move that.
Okay, seconded. Moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 7.3, request for decision, OCP amendment bylaw number 1776-2023, electoral area B, zoning bylaw amendments. Vivian.
Yes, and I see Brenda Colin, they're coming in. Brandon.
Morning, Brenda. And Kim,
Morning.
hey, you have some questions, Vivian?
I do.
Go right ahead.
I'll just scroll through in order. First of all, I have to thank the staff for all the extra time you've taken on this. I really appreciate it. And that includes all of you that have worked on it. And the softening of the language in some of the policies is really appreciated and exactly right. I think the process of including me and doing some of the work, not at the meetings was really helpful. And I thank you for that. I'm scrolling down. I think the first thing that should be changed is on my page 32. And I will get there. Okay, actually, let's start under your request for decision. I'm on page 26 of the package, decision-making criteria for lands designated agriculture. This was just, I just have a question mark here. There's a statement that says there's currently no criteria to guide decision-making for agricultural land. I thought, well, actually, there's quite a lot of guidelines around decision-making for agricultural land. So I wasn't sure that we wanted to leave that sentence quite like that. Am I not understanding that?
What paragraph is that?
It's at the top of the page in the right column on page 26. I thought that I just didn't get why we were saying that. Are you with me, Brenda or Kim?
Page 26.
Yeah.
Find that.
Have you got it?
Sorry, I'm just trying to find the reference that you're talking about. Is it in the report?
It's where you've got the columns. And additional dwellings in the ALR is one, right, in the left, and then the next page, decision-making criteria for lands designated agriculture.
Page 10 of the
What
package
page
of
is it?
the,
Yeah, that's a more helpful way. Thank you,
Page
thank you,
10 of the
Director
report?
Demare, page 10. of
page
the
10 of the
report.
PDF.
Oh. It's on the wrong page.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. I think what we're trying to say here is just that there's no existing policy within the OCP for decision-making criteria for agricultural land.
Okay.
So that's not to say that there isn't maybe other mechanisms for that.
Just we have a whole, agricultural land use plan for Area B. So that's a pretty significant document. So I just thought that wasn't necessarily a helpful statement to put in here because we do have criteria, never mind the provincial stuff. That's a comment. And then I thought farther down on that same column, same page, page 10, will aid in farmland protection by creating clear criteria. I thought you could just put a period there. You don't need, you could delete for qualified professionals because it's good information. It's clear criteria for everyone. I'm wondering about the timing on the public hearing. And we're in the very, very, very busy time for farmers now over the summer, which is just something to remember.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
But the next comment I have is a caution. So now I'm on page 5. Your page 5, right? My page 32. This is, I think this is new. I don't think we talked about this before, the data from the BC Archaeology branch. You with me?
Sorry, page 5 of the report or,
Well,
Page 5 of the bylaw.
page 5 of the bylaw.
okay, I'm going there. Oh, yeah, I can speak to that. So just when we were kind of doing another review of the existing OCP, we noticed that there's some references to the Ministry of Tourism as being sort of the body that oversees the archaeology branch. So I don't know, that was probably the case, many years ago, but we just felt that that should be corrected. And we're actually just proposing to change it to state the BC Archaeology Branch or Provincial Archaeology Branch, just because ministries change so often.
Right. My concern is around the reference in particular such that, so there remains of pit houses scattered throughout electoral area B, such as at Tiffin, several kilometers south of the Squamish band office and on. I suspect, because I know Squamish in the past has objected to references to that site. They are, until they have it protected and they're managing it and inviting the public, I don't think they don't want references to that particular site out in the public. And so I just thought we might want to take that reference to in particular to Tiffin out. It's pretty sensitive information for Squamish. And it's not really necessary for the purposes of this document, right? And my other comments are excellent, great, wonderful. Page 6. Is that okay with you guys? So far, so good? All right. On page 6, BC Hydro is an agency that has significantly shaped resource management lands. I'd just say BC Hydro has significantly shaped the Seton and Bridge watersheds.
And then just that one, like, are you proposing the rest of that?
Oh, the rest of it's fine.
Okay.
So just repeat that for me, please.
Okay, currently it says BC Hydro is an agency that has significantly shaped capital R resource, capital M management lands within electoral area B, period.
Yeah, so you want to change that to,
It's very weird, that just the significant resource management lands. What are we talking about? Like,
yeah,
so I'm just suggesting, because where BC Hydro has significantly shaped the landscape is in the watersheds, the Seton and the Bridge watersheds. That language makes more sense to me.
yeah.
Okay,
I agree.
okay, thank you.
So, sorry, significantly altered lands within the bridge. Could you just repeat?
Well, we just for the minimal change, significantly shaped the Seton and Bridge watersheds.
So Bridge River watersheds?
They call it Bridge.
Oh,
We tend to call it Bridge. We could call it Bridge River. Bridge River.
Bridge River.
Sure. The Seton and Bridge River watersheds is, I think, more accurate language that the people would understand.
So, does Anderson Lake fall into that watershed?
It sure does.
And same with Gates Lake and
Seton, yeah.
all of that
They're all
flows this.
connected, and
Okay.
by listing it as a watershed, you pull in all of it, yes. So I'm still a little bit uncomfortable with the security of the form of an irrevocable letter of credit in the amount of 135% of estimated cost. And I know we don't have like big developments going on in Area B. So when you do a development like at Furry Creek in Britannia, those massive developments, do those guys, the developers, actually put up letters of credit for 135% of the value of their development? This is our standard working way of doing
What
business.
page is that?
It is on page 7 of the bylaw.
Through the chair, yes, that is our standard practice at the time of development permit.
Wow. Okay, then.
It's also it's a standard in practice in the entire development industry. So all local governments would take a security to ensure that works get done.
Thank you. Yep.
Just to clarify, Kim, that's not of the 135% of the whole development. It's sort of each development permit portion, is it?
Yes, through the chair, it would be through, let's, for example, say that someone has stated that they will provide, say, a bus stop and pull out. They would secure that. And once built, they would, that would be refunded.
It's just a letter though, right?
That's correct. It's a letter of credit through the bank to ensure that there are adequate funds to do the work in the case that the developer does not.
Okay, I will refrain from going on a tangent. Thank you. And otherwise, I like, for example, the provisions, wording like the provisions of other bylaws may be buried under a development permit. Like I like, thank you for allowing some softening and some flexibility of some of the language. And I'm moving right on through. I was really happy to see that the SLRD Area B Agricultural Advisory Committee was referenced, and I was really grateful that the Invasive Species Society was correctly named and referenced as a resource. On page 11, the last paragraph, electoral area B has areas of high geotechnical activity. I would just put a period there. There's a lot of reasons why, more than just unstable ground and rockfall. And I don't think we need to list them all. I think we can just leave the statement that we have areas of high geotechnical activity. There's logging, there's changing climate, there's Forest Service roads, there's many other things. And the fact that you say the building official may require a geotechnical report is wonderful. And all the other comments are positive. This is just a question on page 13 of the bylaw, 4.2.4. Support development of long-term solutions to sustainably manage green waste materials as a wildfire mitigation measure. Are we talking about collecting up like rakings and clippings? Is this garden waste? Is that green waste? Okay. Maybe call it fuel. Reference, beautiful.
Yeah, that 4.2.4, that unless you know what it actually says there, you wouldn't figure that out, at least when I read that.
I was thinking compost organic matter. That was my first thought.
Yeah.
So you just. Page 18. Number 4, at the bottom of the page, removal of trees deemed hazardous by a qualified professional that threaten the immediate safety of life and buildings. If you have a tree immediately threatening life and buildings, I'm not sure that you're gonna have time to call in a qualified professional unless a qualified professional includes arborists, fallers, the fire chief. Do we have that defined somewhere else? Is that the same qualified professional that's going to do some of the other assessments?
Through the chair, we don't have it defined anywhere, I don't believe. But yeah, it does depend on sort of the context, because there's different types of qualified professionals. Like when we're talking about riparian areas, that qualified professional may be different than what we're talking about when we're talking about trees and things like that.
Okay. Just thinking about the practicality of that. And then on page 19. The development permit, so there's a reference here to say, how can I get you, just above guidelines general, that paragraph, a development permit exception may also be granted where it can be demonstrated that the proposed development is located on that part of the parcel outside the designated riparian protection DPA. And then the next sentence, where this determination is based on a report or other certification acceptable to the SLRD. I mean, it's either in the riparian or it's not, like we've already defined that. So I'm not sure, like now, like the way this reads, you're gonna always need a permit to demonstrate that you're outside of the riparian, and you're gonna have to call in a qualified professional. I just thought that was making it unnecessarily complicated, and that was the language there. Do we need another certification? Like we've made the riparian mapping to cover the entire area B. We've defined what riparian is very clearly. So I don't think that you need to prove that you're not in the riparian and call in a professional. When something is pretty cut and dried, you're either in or not. What am I missing?
Through the chair, I can speak to that a little bit. I think the intent here, we're looking at exemptions. So there are certain cases where something might be sort of close to that 30 meters, and they would need to bring in a qualified environmental professional to actually determine exactly where the high water mark starts, because that's how they would determine that 30-meter setback. So, you know, it's probably pretty rare, but in that instance where staff can't really make that determination, we would want them to hire a qualified environmental professional to determine that.
Okay, in that exceptional situation. Okay. Now, I really like the wording in number 2, farther down the page on 19. All projects are encouraged to apply. I thought was just terrific. It was good general wording that caught a lot. There's a typing mistake on number 3, page 20. It should be drought resistant, I believe, not drought resistive. And then I had a question on number 8, that same page. The report must be submitted to the province via the riparian areas regulation notification system. I know what that is now. Does the province charge for that as well?
Through the chair, I'm not sure if they actually charge for that. Kim, do you know the answer to that?
They do not.
Okay, great. And then on number 14, page 21. Where a mapped or unmapped stream in electoral area B is found not to be subject to the RAR. How would that happen? They're all subject to the RAR, are they not? Sorry for all the R's.
I believe this is speaking to in instances where it's like a figure.
Sorry, I didn't understand that.
Oh, I think I'm.
Brenda's freezing up. I think Kim maybe as well. My understanding is that they're all subject to the RA.
Oh, they're moving again now.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So I was asking.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're back.
Sorry, lost connection for a second. Yeah, just speaking to 14, I'm not sure if we're still there. But a qualified environmental professional, again, would make that determination, but there are instances where they would maybe make a case because it's not a fish-bearing stream, that, you know, certain works could take place potentially, but it's kind of up to the qualified environmental professional to make that case to the province.
Okay. Okay. And I think every single other comment I have is complimentary and appreciative. On page 26, I just have a question. Under area, the farmland protection DPA applies to all lands within electoral area B. But that we're talking about not. The farmland protection DPA applies to all lands that are adjacent to agricultural land, right? Okay. Forest. On page 28, applications for a development permit shall be accompanied by plans including but not limited to. Okay, no, that's fine. That is fine. Can live with that. I'm really glad for the references farther along about using existing native vegetation. Oh, one question, here's a question on page 29. Under number 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th bullet. The buffers should be approximately 6 meters in height. Appropriate species should be selected to reach this minimum height and should reach at least 2 meters in height at the time of planting. Are we saying that we're trying to plant trees that are 2 meters in height at the time of planting? Because that's not a very good idea. Just that those big trees don't survive as well in our climate. They do better if they're smaller when they're planted. And do we need to put that in there? We know what we're going for. The buffer should be approximately 6 meters in height. Appropriate species should be selected to reach this minimum height. That could be period. Unless I'm not understanding what you're trying to say there. Should reach at least 2 meters in height at that time of planting.
Through the chair, yeah, I think the intent was to require sort of that more established planting, but we can look at that again if we need to maybe reword that.
I just don't think we should be recommending that they're planting trees that height at the time of planting. That's just a comment to consider. I've seen a whole lot of dead trees around Lillooet that were planted because somebody got a grant to plant trees and they planted big trees, and now what we have is a lot of dead
Dead big trees.
trees.
Yeah.
It's, trees do better if you plant them smaller.
I just ask, is that not the kind of question we could put to a qualified landscape architect or somebody like that? Maybe if they're going to plant trees that size, they have to include those water bags around the bottom of them. I don't know. I have no idea whether I understand what you're saying about the climate there and what you can do, say in Ferry Creek. You maybe wouldn't want to do at Lillooet.
Correct.
But instead of us messing around with the language, I'd prefer to ask somebody that's qualified to make that kind of recommendation.
So I guess what you're saying is then we shouldn't be specifying
The height at the
the
time.
height of the
planting.
tree. Let the professional decide that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That should be reflected here. That leave it up to the professionals to determine
Yeah.
what size of tree to plant.
May well be somebody would say, yeah, you can plant it, this particular species that height,
Yeah.
provided that you do this.
Yeah, yeah.
Then we could do it.
Mhm.
But we're not experts.
An example of that, we had a 5,000 square foot log home go up and they had to blast rock to be able to put their building in, and they got trees that were probably 18 feet tall and planted them to buffer that rock face there. They all died,
They will die.
every single one of them.
The Statliam Tribal Police recently planted some trees that are about 2 meters in height. They actually have the bags of water on them and they're all dead. They're on the reserve. So I just aiming for success, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So take that into consideration. Page 33 is just another typo. Under building form and character, B, I think we want extended building plans and not planes. And I absolutely love the roof shape and orientation to optimize opportunities for solar energy. Thank you very much. And also deciduous trees for summer shading and coniferous trees to block winters is great. It's just a simple sentence that captures everything that we need to say, I do believe. And that's the end of my comments. And I thank you for all the extra time. And those are my final quibbles on this. I'd like, I wonder if Director Mack would consider being an alternate at the public hearing. I know we have Jen Ford there, but she's very busy. And I think Director Mack has a better sense of area B.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can we make some of those tiny changes and then,
Yes. What was that comment you just made about deciduous trees and coniferous trees? I'm looking.
okay. I've zoomed away from it now. Oh, okay, I'll find it.
It was on 33, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. Because if we're making those kinds of recommendations, we might also want to say something about not planting the kind of bushes around close to the house that really burn well.
Yeah,
Well, and the wildfire DPA section does have references like that in it already. So
It's not needed.
it's already covered.
Thank you.
And to answer your question, I think Russell found it.
That
You found
covers
it?
what it
Okay.
is, yeah.
Okay. It's on page 35. It says plant deciduous trees to increase summer shading and plant coniferous trees to block winter wind. It's C, and I'm really happy with that wording. So with those comments, I'm happy to move this along.
you can move all four dots. Can we?
So you would like staff to make all those changes that you discussed?
Are there any objections to any of those? I mean, I think those are all sort of a lot of minor tweaks, right? And so with those tweaks, and I know that's not a proper word, with those, recognizing those comments and making some of those very minor changes, this could go along to board meeting.
So we could do a resolution that staff make update the bylaw to reflect the comments made today.
If that's all right with staff.
And if
Yeah, okay.
that's timing works, and then it be brought forward with those revisions to the June board meeting.
If staff are prepared to do that,
But then we're talking about changing things.
I think they
So
are.
we'll start with the resolution that staff, that the bylaw be updated to reflect the comments of the committee.
Okay, so we're going to,
As a standalone.
we're gonna pass, or we're gonna do the first app then?
We're gonna do this resolution directing staff to.
Okay,
update the
and
bylaw.
that'll take care of
And
everything.
then we'll do the next
Okay.
set, which will be incorporating what's.
Okay, I'll read the resolution then.
Okay,
Okay, that staff update the bylaw to reflect the changes of the committee.
The comments of the committee.
Okay.
comments of the EAD committee, with obviously, okay,
Okay.
Are you moving that?
I can move that, I'd like to move that.
I'll second
Okay,
that.
you'll second that? Okay. All right, moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you for that.
Can we not rescind that first one?
And then we can pass.
Then we can pass
Next
1, 2,
steps.
3, 4, that follow as written in our agenda under 7.3. To rescind the first reading, etc. So I'd like to move those for that.
For that. Okay, moved, seconded.
I
Do you understand, Tony?
I'm not understanding that. I thought we.
So what we would
just
pass the resolution, or as we go forward with the changes that we've suggested, or
Right.
that maybe suggested. Okay, now we're gonna go and do the for that. So the first that would be to rescind that. And then
Yeah.
we're passing the other 2, 3, right?
Okay,
Okay? So Vivian's moved that. You're gonna second that?
Yep.
That, and that.
now that,
Okay. Moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
right.
Sal,
I'd just like to make a comment. Vivian and Brenda, you both and Kim have done an excellent job in working through it. I really like the process that you went through. I'm doing very similar with a couple other, with the OCP and the wildfire resiliency plan.
Yes.
And that whole process of going back and forth and making the changes is critical to get something that we really want. One other comment I'll make is on the danger trees, hazardous trees, and on property. I've gone through that process. We had the fir beetle kill probably about 30 trees on our lot, and it's almost a 2-acre lot. And because we don't own the trees, we don't own the ground underneath us, I had to get a section 52. And some of them were in the riparian zone. And I actually contacted the SLRD staff at that time. And basically because I had my section 52, I could do it. The only requirement they made was that I replanted similar trees that I took out, which I've done. So it was just an interesting process that I had to go through to be able to do what I did, because I don't own
So,
the trees.
yeah, question then. So you own a 2-acre parcel.
Yep.
But you don't own the trees
I
on
don't
the
own the
parcel.
trees, no,
So who owns them? The Crown?
the Crown. And it's all because of the
Mineral rights?
Crown granted mineral claims. Just another issue with those Crown granted mineral
Yeah,
claims.
so does that apply to all the lots on the lake?
Only the ones that are still have an active Crown granted mineral claim. And have you seen those maps?
Yeah, that's,
So if they discover something valuable underground,
yeah,
his house is toast, you know, they just develop in there and,
No, they can't do that.
Well, they can't do
They've
it.
got to be so far from buildings.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So just an interesting conversation about hazardous trees.
yeah. Very interesting.
But just for your information, that noise outside is a group of future volunteer firefighters, all about this tall with little red hats on, having a great time.
Okay, we're on to 7.4. Request for decision, Tyoton Creek Estates, OCP amendment, first and second reading.
Or staff staying on.
Pardon me?
No, there was Brenda. I wanted to say thank you to Brenda, but I think I did along the way.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda, and thank you, Kim, for the previous 7.3. And Sal, do you want to
Well,
start this one off?
maybe we'll let,
But
see if Kim got it.
is Kim, you're going to speak to this, Kim? Okay.
Yes. Chair, would you like a brief summary of this?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we received an OCP amendment application proposing to remove the special planning area on District Lot 4932. And the property owner would like to subdivide this property into 7 lots, each being 8 hectares in size. This is provided for through the existing RR2 zoning. And so the owner is seeking to amend the OCP designation from residential special planning area to simply residential, as there is no desire to further intensify development on that property. So we do not feel that the special planning area policies and requirements are relevant to the site any longer. So this is sort of a bit of a technicality, I suppose, to remove that designation. We don't see, and nor does the owner see, intensive development happening on that particular parcel. So the request is to do the referrals and schedule a electronic public hearing.
Sal?
Yeah, I'd just like to make one comment. If you look at the on the link at the very last page, this is the first one that I've seen now that has the 3 priority fire zones listed on it in their kind of the wildfire end of it. And the session that we had, that the Fraser Basin Council put on a presentation with the wildfire specialist. He talked at length about those 3 zones. So it's really interesting to see this application come with that wildfire zoning on it. So I'd like to move, I presume, the first that presented.
Okay, can do them all at once because it's a recommendation to the board.
Oh, okay. I'll move recommendation to the board, all of that.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, again, 8.1, thanks, Kim. 8.1, Director's Project, Britannia Beach Community Association Canada Day celebrations and Britannia Beach Rock or Dock fundraiser. Director Rainbow.
Yeah, I'd like to move this. They talked originally just about supporting the Canada Day celebrations, and then we got into talking about the fundraising for the improvements they want to make to the dock. And I said, so we ended up doing it this way. They won't spend all that money. It'll help them raise some money. So I'm going to be giving them money to support the dock anyway. So
Very good.
We're doing it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Sal? Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 8.2, Furry Creek Community Association Annual Grant, Director Rainbow.
Yeah, just earlier this year, I've been doing those annual grants of $1,000 to all of the community associations in Area D, and I excluded Furry Creek this year because they were disorganized. They weren't compliant with the BC Societies Act, and it was just a shambles. And they had their AGM recently. They've now got a board of 7 people. They've got proper officers in place, and they're doing things properly again. So I will give them their grant.
Very good. Moved and seconded.
Yep.
Okay, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you. 8.3, Britannia Beach Community Association Playground Sun Shelter, Director Rainbow.
Yeah, it just if you like, a late addition to the whole playground complex there. Some of the parents were saying it's incredibly hot. It's not exposed. There's no shade around there at all. And if you're up there supervising your children playing, it would be nice to have a shelter with shade. So they're looking at different kinds of structures. One of them being the nooks that Squamish have around town at different playgrounds, and the cost of those is around $10,000. So that's the idea. There, we provide them that much money, and then that will get on and do it.
Very good.
Question, Chair?
Yes.
So you're gonna grant $10,000 from Area D,
Yeah.
but you wanted receipts to come back and unexpended funds returned.
Yeah, I mean, if it only ends up costing them $8,750 or something, then they can. That's all they'll get.
Okay.
So up to
Up to, okay.
Oh dear,
request that 10,000, so it'd be request that up to.
up to then. Sorry, I beg your pardon. That should have been in.
To with receipts, is that
Yeah.
sort of your intention?
Yeah.
Okay.
So would you, my understanding was that we were providing them as we did, providing the money
Yeah.
upfront.
Yeah.
And then receipts to follow and expend. So it's not really an up to, because we can't send an up to out to, we need to know. So 10,000 will be sent out. And the expectation is they provide receipts at the conclusion and return any expenditure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, got that figured out. Okay, moved and seconded.
Yeah.
Okay, call question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
And I forgot if I expressed it in the report, but we do need to make sure that, and I talked to Alison about this, that the height is suitable. What I want to do is coordinate with the people that are building the fence. Because we put the shelter there, the fence can come up to one side of them and run across. So that people sitting in the sun shelter can have direct access to the playground.
Put the fence in front of the
Yeah,
parents.
I'm not quite sure where I'm at with that at the moment. I haven't heard back from Alison, so.
I'm sure she will bring you up
Sorry,
to
there she
date.
is. Yeah,
I believe Omar had responded to your request on the height restriction.
Yeah, the height restriction, yeah, so you got the height restriction.
yeah, that one's okay,
Yeah,
but what about coordinating with the people building the fence?
Right, we can definitely do that. We had spoken, since I received your email, we contacted BC Hydro and they would require a review process before they permitted the sunshade underneath the power line. So there would be a bit of a delay to get that going. And we weren't sure what type of sunshade it was. Did they already have some type of shade in mind or?
Yeah, I thought I sent a picture. The nooks that they have in Squamish, it's a wooden structure. I'd want to put this on a cement pad so that it was secure.
Okay.
And the sides, there's gap, the siding, there's gaps between the siding so that you've got airflow through there.
That's great. Wooden is much preferred by BC Hydro, so that helps.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So what else do I need? What else do we need to do?
We'll need drawings to forward to BC Hydro. And we can work on that. Show you a sample of them, you can see this.
Okay.
Okay, you're good with it now, Tony?
Yeah, thank you.
You guys are all good with it?
Yeah.
Very good, okay.
So
Yes.
that the considerations would be the ongoing maintenance and inspection of the asset and the responsibility of that sunshade moving forward, particularly given that it is a wooden structure. So there will be operating funds that will need to be taken into consideration. And so this will ensure year after year there's maintenance on that structure. Just to put that out there for staff and director to take into consideration. It's currently in the operating budget. That asset has not been taken into consideration.
The whole playground asset, you mean?
No, the playground asset has, and Suzanne LaFrance has been working that into ongoing budgets, but this being a new asset would need to be something that would be considered and ongoing. So would it be the responsibility of the SLRD, because it is on SLRD land, to maintain that asset moving forward? Something to consider.
So,
I'm just wondering, because it's the association that is getting this funding.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
And on the playground, is there a management agreement with the Britannia Beach Community Association already to maintain it? So it's an SLRD.
It's an SLRD asset.
So just wondering how this works, that you're giving Britannia Beach Association the funding, and why doesn't the SLRD put it on? To me, now it's the community association that actually basically owns it and is putting it up. Correct? Shouldn't it be the SLRD, or? I'm just looking at it and when you're talking about management program, to maintain a maintenance program where other assets that are owned by the SLRD, such as did not own, but they have tenure on the land, then the organization that has the management agreement, that's part of their responsibility. A good example is the Braylor Church. So I'm just throwing that out.
That's an interesting point. I mean, if the CAO and staff feel that this shouldn't be shouldn't be done by the community association, and that staff can take care of it, that's fine. But I was, be honest with you, I was just looking at this and thinking, do I want to put another piece of work on staff's shoulders when I've got a group of people in the community that want to get on and do it? So I would prefer to be able to do it in the community and with whatever we need to do with regard to the maintenance and so on.
See,
Just because through the chair, perhaps Mr. Butt can take this away and look at what the options are to deliver this piece of infrastructure. Because either way, the upkeep costs need to be accounted for. It's got to be worked into the budget. If that can be implemented in a different way that puts that responsibility in the back of an association through an agreement, then that's something to be looked at. But I would just recommend that we go away and look at what the options to do that are.
Okay.
And you're going to see shortly with the asset management piece that even small pieces of infrastructure come with cost. And
Yeah, I understand that. I have no problem with that. As I said, I was trying to do something without asking staff to add it to their workload.
Yeah.
Because where does it go on the list? It's not a high priority compared to some other things, and we don't get it this summer. So whereas if I do it this way, I could probably get it this summer. And if we do it and then need to sign some agreement to turn it over to I'm not sure how that works. But if we can leave it so that the funding is secure, and then I'll discuss it with the owner and come up with a plan. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the work they have to do already, right? With the referrals to BC Hydro, because it's their land. Right, you're gonna have to get a drawing and so on and so forth. And so I don't know how much work that's gonna take staff, but staff has to, unless.
I think though,
Yeah.
I think we should take advantage of these local groups in all of our areas that are willing to take responsibility and take on this stuff, because that's it. There's so many, really great groups in every area that are more than capable and willing to do this stuff. I think we should be trying to encourage that and get them involved more so than they actually are. So.
Well, yeah, I totally agree. And we have a number of that happening in our area for sure. And, but at the same time, there's particular things that, such as, I presume that SLRD now has a tenure on that land with BC Hydro.
SLRD owns the land, but the BC Hydro has a very large right of way across it with the high power lines. So they're a stakeholder, and so there would have to be a BC Hydro approval of that, and it can be a 12-week process to get those approvals.
So, yeah, so no matter what, staff has got to be involved, right? And that's the same thing with any of the tenures that SLRD has, that where community groups are managing them. We got a lot of them.
But if we own the land,
Yeah.
does that not change it? I mean, sure, we have to, because BC Hydro has a right of way to have their transmission towers. We own the land under. It's no different than, say, here, in Pemberton with the skate park, bike park, all that stuff, the new park and ride and all that. They're all under the hydro lines. You just have to meet their requirements.
Right.
So,
But there is an engineering review that takes place.
yeah.
through the chair, if I might recommend, I think from my perspective, the best way to tackle this is to refer to staff to do the little bit of work to describe what a project means. Because I know it seems like you know, things can get done quickly. But I think the first step before getting to the point of making a decision, do we do this or not, is that let staff take a look at it and identify what needs to be done to get this work done, because I have no idea sitting here. You know, in terms of committing staff capacity and, you know, we need to do the work to understand if there's permitting required, how long does that take? If there's engineer support, whether we agree with that or like that or not. You know, I think we need to take the time to say, what is this project? What amount of staff time is involved? What time will it take to deliver the project? We need to do due diligence to look at what the ongoing maintenance costs, et cetera, might be. And giving us the time to do that work well upfront helps us in the end. Because we're having a conversation here that we really don't know enough about.
Okay, so you're suggesting then that we refer this back to staff for more guidance or?
For an initial analysis to determine what it would take to implement this and what options might be available. It could be easier ways than others.
That's a good resolution.
And further to that, I believe we will need to rescind this resolution, otherwise the funding will go to, if that's not sure that we want the funding be sent out. Or do we want to refer it? And another option is to allocate the funding to the cost center. And then refer it to staff to come back. And otherwise the money's going to the community association.
I don't mind which way it goes. I don't want to rescind the funding, because then if I get some sort of approval, I may have to wait another month before there's a meeting before I can secure the funding again. So whether it goes to the cost center or goes to the association, I don't care. But when staff have got an approval from BC Hydro, I want to be able to move on it right away. So
we're gonna leave the initial then funding portion the way it is.
well, what are you most comfortable with, Kristen?
I think to achieve your objective of getting the funding allocated, we rescind.
Yeah.
Because that's money going to a third party.
Okay.
And we allocate the funding up to 10,000 to the cost center. And then it's available to staff. And staff's also gonna do an assessment as the CAO described. And, you know, determine how to carry this project out.
Okay. That work?
Isn't the fly in the ointment here, though, that the staff can't ask the community group to do this work? The community group wants to do this work, and that's why you're trying to get the funds directly to them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I'm not sure the money should be allocated to staff when we have a volunteer group. I mean, absolutely, we can't just build it and then walk away, and this maintenance needs to be thought of and the liability of it. So there is more investigation, but not necessarily moving the assignment over to staff necessarily.
Just curious, that association, do they have general commercial liability insurance? And if they do, how much?
I don't know how much. I don't know the answer to that.
The complicator is that this is our land. Often we grant funding for a project. That they're doing, maybe it's on their land, maybe they have a permit, and that's up to them to sort those details out. In this situation, it's our land, so we're gonna need some kind of agreement with them to be building on SLRD land. So so what does that agreement look like, right? Because what are we requiring them to have in place before they start constructing on SLRD land?
So what we need to do is exactly what the CEO has advised us to do. Is go back to staff, let them figure it out, come back and tell us what, when, and how we can do it. So in the meantime, we need to rescind this first. So I'll make a motion to rescind. Seconded. Call the question, all in favor? Opposed, motion carried. So now we will use the CEO's resolution, if you don't mind.
Suggestion.
Refer the project to staff to determine how to carry out sun shelter project.
Okay, I'll move that.
Okay, and I'll second it. I'll call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, you guys.
Some information to us on the.
Sure.
Okay,
My only comments, I really want to try and get it done for this year.
yeah, for sure. They sounded like the wooden one was preferred, so. And hopefully we can push them to.
Okay, thanks, Owen.
Thank you. Okay, 9.1. Correspondence for action. Okay. Oh, so request for funding tourism permanent slow food cycle Sunday sponsorship. Tourism permanent request funding in the form of sponsorship for the 17th annual slow food cycle Sunday in August of 2023. And I would like to put forward the gold sponsorship of $2,500 towards that. And we can use, I'm going to say we use various amenity funds.
So that's to go to the board.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 9.2, oh, sorry.
And along with that gold sponsorship, there's 6 event tickets.
Yes.
What would you like to do with those?
I would like you to have a lottery and they go to staff. Okay,
So motion for that.
Motion for that.
okay. I'll move it, you second it.
I will.
Okay, moved and
Hold on a
seconded.
second.
Well, you want, okay, you can second. We can all second.
My second.
No problem. All in favor, or call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Okay, so that's 6.
Rotary.
Okay, request for funding, Rotary Club of Pemberton and District Chamber of Commerce, Pemberton Golf Tournament sponsorship. And I also want to do the gold sponsorship on this one. And that is $2,500. And that'll be amenity funds also. And I believe there's 4 golf passes. So once again, those are for staff. You can get a team together and enter them. Okay. Cool. I'll move it. You'll second it.
Yeah.
Call a question, all in favor, closed, motion carried. 9.3, request for funding Permanent Alliance Club and Rotary Club of Permanent Barn Dance sponsorship. And once again, I'd like to do the gold sponsorship of $2,500. And
Amenity funds.
from amenity funds, yes. And it's 6, okay, so once again, there's 6 tickets that go with that. So they will go to staff and you can have a lottery or do whatever. Okay? Very good. So I'll move that. If he's going to second it.
Let's do it in area C.
Call the question.
Lucky staff.
All in favor,
That's great.
opposed, motion carried. No, that's good.
I put them up for sale at auction with the money going to the food bank. To the given.
No. Staff do a lot for us. We can all, hey, but hold it, but that's a really good suggestion. Money to the food banks. I know we've done it, but maybe it's time we all put another little bit forward to the food banks as summer's approaching, something to think about. Okay,
I have an item for late business.
Okay, so that's good. That was moved to second also. Okay, decision on additional late business, please.
Just, well, we've got Director Phillips here, but I would like to make a motion to take some money. This is to do with funding a GIS position for some mapping work in all 4 electoral areas and combining the various plans and, you know, we've got geotechnical over here and the various plans and putting them all together to help with response and evacuation planning and emergency management. So I'm proposing the resolution. Yes.
We have to vote.
Well, first of all, we need to decide that we're going to talk about it later. Okay. I'd like to propose that we talk about this late business regarding some funding for GIS mapping with protective services.
You're moving that.
I'd like to move that.
I'll second that. So then we
Okay, moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Okay, so now that
So
becomes
we're gonna add that
11.2.
Sure. So where does that go? Oh, great, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we moved that to 11.2. So now we have late business, which is director's report. Britannia Beach Volunteer Fire Department recognition, Director
Oh, there's that.
Raymond.
Sorry.
Okay, I just have a question before I move this. What exactly does that mean, going to the cost center? Because that staff changed that, I'm not quite sure why.
So through the chair, the allocation of the funds associated with the recognition are going to the cost center, so the expenses can be reimbursed through that cost center.
Oh, so it's just going that way to get to Rob.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the intent.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
So it says here, this is in recognition of their interior attack capabilities now.
Yeah.
Okay, so it says here that a plaque and tactical flashlights for senior leaders to commemorate. So why would you not provide tactical flashlights for everybody in the department? Because if they're now an interior attack qualified group of people, they potentially could all be going inside. And if they all go inside, they all need the flashlights.
I'm a novice in this and I just follow regional fire chief's recommendation there.
Yeah, I think that,
Well, they should be using headlamps.
Mark,
Can we join?
Sure. Through the chair, yeah, so they do have the supplies, equipment, training. They do need to operate an interior attack, but really these tactical flashlights were for just thanking those and as personal gifts for those, the leadership for all the work they did in terms of getting the fire department there. So it was more of a personal token of just thank you. And I think firefighters appreciate tactical flashlights in general. So yeah.
yeah,
So if there is a need for equipment, you know, throughout the department, and we haven't taken care of it, I'm happy to talk to Chief Nichols and to Rob and to Mark and work out what we need.
yeah, just from experience. I mean, when you go inside, it's all the same, whether you're an officer or a firefighter.
Yes.
Still got to see where you're going and what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So those tactical flashlights you're talking about, I presume are the ones attached to the helmets?
I don't fully understand exactly when they got it.
Interesting. Okay. So,
Yeah, I actually have a presentation on recognition that I've worked with before and shared. And one of the issues is that, you know, you're giving it to certain people, but not to the rest of them. And to me, these tactical flashlights should be given to all the volunteers and to to the staff members of that fire department. And aggrieved for why they're getting it.
Through the chair, fully.
To really push a point.
No, yeah, I fully appreciate that, and I can take that back to Chief Bender as well for a discussion and our fire department chiefs as well.
Yeah. We should talk about that. 100%.
Okay, so the motion at hand,
Yes.
okay,
And I have to tell you, the money's already been spent. We did this, we did it a backhanded way. It came to EAD in April when I wasn't here. And there was the comment that it was we wanted to keep it secret, so as a surprise to the department. And in your wisdom, you took that off the agenda because you recognized that once it was there, it would be public and the surprise element would be gone. So therefore, like I say, I'm now wanting to approve an expenditure that has already been.
very good. So you're moving it, I'll second it,
Yes.
Vivian's gonna second it. Okay, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
And I have to say, these were presented at an awards dinner. Had some very good speakers there, very accomplished speakers, including Director Phillips and Regional Chief Van Doren. And it was a really good celebration. It's really great to see the whole group together and really the sense of the sort of camaraderie there is with that group. It's a very strong group, and we should be very pleased that we have such an organization in our region.
Absolutely,
and the plaque, it's a really interesting plaque. You know, it's got crossed axes, and it's a nice little plaque, and it looks good on the wall. So, which is where it is now. It's on the wall of the fire in the fire hall.
and that's very good to see that they are interior attack qualified. Because I think, back to my experience, if you have the training and the group of people to do it, that's exactly what you should be trying to attain. Because, as I say, speaking from experience, like in Richmond, we were interior attack team. We always went inside. That was the whole idea. You went in, put the fire out, and did whatever job you needed to do in the process. So that's wonderful. I think that's just a real compliment to all those guys and girls and good on them.
The report was that in the last year they did 3,600 odd hours of training. And the other thing that struck me when I was watching what was going on there was the number of female firefighters.
Yeah, I saw that.
I asked Chief about that, and it's around 45% of the crew are females. I've asked someone to find out if that's a provincial record, but
It's good. Yeah, it's way up there. That's good.
And it's something we should note that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
very good. Good for you. And good for you. And Chief Roth too. Okay, 11.2, funding GIS. I have down here person. Would you like to speak?
So
to this?
I blurted out a little background there completely out of order earlier, but I think you're all familiar what we're trying to do here. That up to $15,000 from General Select Fund, that is budget number 2900, be allocated to engage a term full-time GIS contractor to be managed by the Director of Protective Services. Mark Phillips is here to develop community evacuation route maps, integrate previously developed hazard risk maps into a common operating picture mapping tool, and map community specific assets into a common operating picture mapping tool. So I'd like to move that.
And I'll second that. And
No, I was just gonna ask if Mark could just.
yeah,
Add to Vivian's
Speak to it a little
comments.
Yeah, certainly. So I guess it kind of ties back to a few items in our work plan. So the first piece is we are working on developing community evacuation plans. So we have kind of a general, the roles, responsibilities, principles of evacuation, and we're working on community specific annexes of those evacuation plans that would outline the context of each of our communities and also start mapping those ingress and egress routes in the primary, secondary. So that's one piece that we're looking for support on. The second piece is we have a number of previously developed hazard reports that have various maps from wildfire risk to our fuel treatment areas, to our WUIs, and also landslide risks, steep creek hazards. But they're all in separate reports, and we have all the different shape files all over the place. So our hope is to bring that all together so we could actually have a central place and we could layer these pieces together to get a better understanding to help us to communicate the risks in these communities, but also advocacy and other pieces that we can use this for. And the third piece is related to trying to create some community kind of resiliency hubs or some better understanding of the assets in our communities. So whether that's rec site or community centers, things like that. And so really that is to start building that process and start mapping the community specific maps as well. So that's really what we're hoping to achieve with this position.
And can I just follow on that? So if we were to approve the money, is this person easy to find, or can we?
Yeah, we'll have to run a process for this, but there are some options potentially that we're looking for, and we're hoping mid-July potentially to have this position filled. Yeah, if approved.
so
Yeah, I fully support this and understand the purpose around that, because it's definitely needed. Because you're right, we got all these various maps all over the place. If we get one I won't call it a map, I'll call it an interactive map, where we got layers and you can click on the layers and bring on the layers as many as you want and whatever you want to do with it. An excellent idea, and I fully support it. But I'd rather see it come from a different funding source. And I'm looking at emergency services, and it's line item exhibit 1761 in our budget, and using reserve emergency planning 30004. There's $65,000 in it, and looking at the 5-year plan, there's no plan to increase it at the end in 2027, still 65,000. And then next year, bring in that $15,000 that we're going to lose here. I'd rather see that.
well, I guess my question is, why? Because if you're gonna just take 15,000 out of that now and then put it back next year, why not just use the general select funds? And we're not moving money around. Because if we take money out of that 65, does that compromise anything you may have planned going forward? Potentially?
I would have to defer to Director LaFrance to
Okay.
specifics.
Well, I think we should just,
I'm okay with it. The other issue, we talk about the fuel and we talk about planning, and we get these items coming at us like really quick. And I know the urgency on it. But it's the same question. I've got things in the fuel that have been waiting for years and years and years. And I'll give you an example. There's a Hailmore Heritage Site. When you talk about a management plan, it's outdated. And we've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and it's not getting done. So we get things thrown at us like bang. Yes, it's important. I totally agree, because it's needed. It's too bad it wasn't planned ahead of time. So,
Yeah, don't.
Yeah, through the chair, that's a really important point, and I appreciate it being raised when new work items come forward, and we've had a couple of work items come forward today. And from a staff perspective, we can't ask the board to follow a certain process in terms of bringing work items forward and then not follow it ourselves. So I think as I mentioned the last board meeting, when a similar question came up, there will always be things that pop up that are opportunities that could and should be seized if you have the money, the asset, the time. There are other times where it can't be done within the current work plan and it should go to the fuel. And I think what's important is when items like this come forward is we speak to whether this is achievable, and if it is, why. So when you mention the River Heritage piece, it's different staff that would have to do that work as opposed to the staff that have to do this work. It's our job as a staff to clarify that. And so one of those, you mentioned Director DeMera last time too, a box or a check on work when it comes forward. And one of those things we need to be able to say is, yes, we've got the staff capacity and that's why we recommend it. Or no, we don't have the staff capacity. Or as we discussed earlier today, we don't even know what the staff capacity required is because we haven't been given time to look at it. We need to make sure that's part of the report coming forward so that the board is confident that staff aren't setting the priorities and we're not ignoring things that have been on the list for 10 years. And let's say you had an item on there that is protective services related, then there needs to be a conversation at the board. Wait, if you've got the staff time to do this, what about these 3 items that are on the list? Which one's the priority? Which one would we like to see you work on? So you just need to keep having those conversations and for us, make sure that when items, and again, this was if you want it bad, you get it bad conversation. And thankfully it's a target of opportunity, but we really haven't taken a considerable amount of time here to map this out. And we need to try and do that because the more, without delaying things, the more we can think through initiatives and come here prepared to speak to all these things, the more confidence it'll engender on the part of the board. The board will be more comfortable making decisions to say yes or no, we think you should focus on this.
Tony.
Yeah, I was just thinking through this whole process. What it sounded like to me is Mark is engaged in a task to do with emergency evacuation. So he's doing that. It's on his work plan. He's doing that. And what this is an opportunity to spend some money to hire someone to expedite that work, to make it easier for him to do that work. So to me, it made sense. It sort of fitted in with the staff plan. So I don't know. Am I wrong there? This is not a new invention. We don't just decide, oh, we're going to do this because it would be fun to do.
No, but I think to be true through the chair, I think to be if we're going to be disciplined in following a strategic planning, work planning process and allocating resources, the time it'll take somebody to conduct the search to find this person, the time it'll take somebody to draft the terms of reference, the time it's going to take somebody to supervise, there's nothing that is just, well, yeah, we really should take the time, I believe, for any work item to make sure we help the board understand what the cost is, where the money's coming from, how much staff time is going to be dedicated, because the board may have other ideas for that staff time if they knew it was available. There may be other opportunities. And if there aren't, if it's really simple, great, we'll say that. But I think we have some work to do to communicate that to the board so the board can be comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I heard this morning that comfort wasn't necessarily there.
and that goes to that checklist, when I talk about a checklist, that all goes to that checklist that until it gets developed, we won't know.
No.
Right?
But having said all that,
Yeah.
and I agree to everything, I still think there's going to be times when an opportunity arises and we have the ability to seize that opportunity and we need to do it. Because by doing it, it fits in with our plan, like our emergency evacuation, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So by having this person come on board, it'll definitely, get that plan in place sooner, faster. And and I was talking to Mark about this, we've already gone through this in previous fires in the Seton area, when all those people in Seton and Chalath, not all of them, but the majority of them were moved down to Naquatco and stayed in the Darcy Naquatco area. So that came down the Highline Road, which is not the best evacuation route, but sometimes it's the only one. So to have some proper GIS mapping and plans in place for our whole region, I think is just, it's a piece of work we need to get done. Because as we know with the fire situations, we've been super lucky the last couple of years over here, not you, but over here. But at some point, we know what's going to happen. We're going to get some more over here. So the more prepared we are, the better. So having said all that,
And that's why it has.
I'm
some
going to second
urgency.
your motion to move this thing along. And we'll figure out, and I'm perfectly comfortable with your funding formula schedule. So it's moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Want to make a comment?
Okay, go ahead.
We had a really good review with Mark and Maud on our proposed planning moving forward and so on and so forth. And the review of CWRP. And I thank you for those 2 sessions that we had. And we actually talk about this kind of stuff. And because it's so important, especially the evacuation routes. And, there were, as an example, there was Gun Lake, there's one way in, one way out, and there's one other way in and out. And it's a forest licensee road. And, and in the document, it stated that it was an FSR, which is not an FSR. It's a forest licensee road. And at the bottom of the hill on that one there, because it's a hill, everything's up to Gun Lake, there's a slide there. And you can't touch it because it's a licensee road. It's a road. So it's a secondary evacuation route. If the fire's on the hill going up on the main Lottie Road, that's the only way out. So that whole concept of these maps are crucial. And so that people understand what we actually have to work with in our communities as far as escape routes.
So Sal, having said that, if that road is identified as escape route B and A is not available.
Yeah.
Now this road has to be accessible.
Yeah.
So then would not have that map and that designation help to make sure that that road is always open.
I totally agree with the mapping.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because that puts the pressure on the licensee to keep that road.
no, the ministry would override them,
Yeah, okay.
right? And
So they would override them and they
and
would
they'd
make
open
sure
it up.
they'd open it up.
But, looking forward with this plan is that, SLD staff should be contacting that licensee and the ministry combined and say, we need this road in better condition.
Yeah, well, we need it open.
Yeah, all the time,
Yeah, exactly.
so that we're not rushing when we do.
So you use that mapping as ammunition for your.
Yeah, when we've got,
Well, that is a big point of this mapping, is it helps with our applications for more work and more funding.
Yeah.
And it helps, there's a lot of benefits to doing it. And for me, the reality of another fire in Area B is very close. I mean, we've had fires already our fire chief says there's nothing to stop us from being another Lytton, and I completely see how possible that is already. with the
Well, you
dry
know,
December
like
climate.
with us living in Darcy, if we have a fire or well, even a landslide, whatever, south of us towards Birkin or even say between Birkin and Lillooet, we have to go over the High Line to get out of there. Now, when we had that Neff Creek issue, when that blew out, we also had a couple of washouts on the High Line. So we were trapped where we were. We had no communication because the telephone lines, everything went down. Hydro was out. So you're on your own. So that now that I was saying, Mark, now that Aquaqua is getting their new rec center, kitchen facilities, all that stuff, their new community center, it'll be finished, I'm thinking, in a couple of months. So we need to get Aquaqua as part of our, you know, on our emergency plan.
That would be a muster point, or?
Yeah, absolutely, for that area, like whether it's coming from Seton or coming from Birkin, but that's the only real facility in that area, right? That can accommodate a bunch of people. I know, like I said, when we had fires previously and brought people in, I was still the fire chief here, and we would run a trailer load of food up every day. They did all the cooking for all that area, probably 200 or 300 people. Cots and everything. So that's a super important hub right there. But it can be completely isolated at times, right? So, yeah, I think there's a lot of, and then, I mean, you know, we can be as isolated as you are. Really easy.
This will help with, this would be some help. towards
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Maybe in addition to identifying things that exist that perhaps we're not quite aware of and getting them out. There's a road that goes from Furry Creek almost to Britannia Beach, and it wouldn't take too much to finish that off, you know. And when you think of the highway from when you get down into Britannia, but yeah, so it wouldn't take much to block that. So, and if it were blocked, that would be another route that doesn't exist at the moment, but could with a relatively small amount of work.
Yeah.
So
there's lots of stuff to
Totally.
put on this map. So, yeah, good. And like I say, I appreciate your keenness. It's very nice.
Sure.
So thank you, and thanks all
Yeah, we appreciate
your
it.
crew.
Would you like a motion to adjourn?
No, we have to do one more thing first.
What?
Director's notice of motion.
Oh. I don't have one. Maybe to adjourn. We have one?
You're rushing.
Goodness, I'm sorry, I'm so out of order here.
Number 12, we haven't dealt with number 12 yet.
Director's notice of motion, nothing.
Nothing.
So now.
That was just the start, so, okay.
That's Tony's number one reason for getting here, is to
Okay.
make sure he adjourns the meeting.
I'm glad that we.
Okay,
passed
thank you
that.
very much, everybody.
Yeah.
How's that?